And Adrian, just within the last few minutes, we did get confirmation from Miami-Dade Fire that the search has resumed. It stopped at around 2 in the morning last night because, as you mentioned, of that structural damage and the widening cracks. They were concerned about the integrity of the building and they didn't want to put crews in danger. They're already risking their lives, but they thought there could be imminent danger. They were measuring it with electronic devices and they didn't want this to come down. This comes as President Biden visited and spoke with the families today.
The whole nation is mourning with these families. They see it every day on television. They're going through hell.
President Biden pledging to local and state officials to cover all costs at the federal level.
I think I have the power, and we'll know shortly, that to be able to pick up 100% of the costs for the county and the state over the first 30 days.
The president thanked the first responders who have been working around the clock before meeting privately with grieving family members starting to lose hope as the search comes to an excruciating halt after engineers found widening cracks in the standing structure and up to a foot of movement.
Time frame, I can't tell you exactly when, but right now our primary focus, obviously is rescuing our victims as well as protecting, our fire personnel that are life-saving as well.
Engineers also said a large column hanging from the structure could fall and damage support columns in the underground area, where first responders conducted this search in the early hours after the collapse. The fire chief confirming today that in those first hours, they heard a woman's voice coming from that area.
We did hear audible sounds, and they were searching for a female voice is what we heard for several hours, and eventually we didn't hear her voice anymore.
This as the investigation continues. The National Institute of Standards and Technology sending a team of scientists and engineers to the site. And new information tonight about the former condo board president writing a letter just 2 months before the building came down, saying the structural problems identified in that 2018 report had gotten significantly worse and that major repairs would cost at least $15.5 million. Bids for the repairs were still pending when the building came down.
Steve Rosenthal lost his home of more than 20 years, his car, everything in it. Now he's mourning his friends and neighbors who have passed away, those who are still missing. And he's also angry. He has nothing now, and he's already suing his condo association.
I heard the loudest thunder clap I ever heard in my life, times 100. Times 100.
This is what Steve Rosenthal saw when he tried to escape his condo in the middle of the night.
Open up the hallway, see what's going on. Can't see anything. Just toxic dust just smacks me in the face.
He heard his neighbors screaming for help as he waited for an hour to be rescued from his 7th floor balcony.
Not good, huh?
The bruises on his arms tell the story. Firefighters carrying him down in a cherry picker.
You have certain events that happen in your life. Like if you were at 9/11, you're going to remember that forever. This is something I remember. To me, this is a mini 9/11, Miami style.
The Champlain Tower was his home for 2 decades. And when it came crumbling down, so did everything he owned.
Everything. I got nothing.
His next door neighbors confirmed dead, and 150 of his friends and neighbors missing.
As sad as this is, it's going to be hard to find some people alive right now. It would truly, truly be a miracle. I think it's a miracle that I'm alive, but if they find somebody alive right now, that would just be an amazing miracle, and I pray to God they do.
As new information has emerged about the warning signs and red flags about structural damage, Rosenthal is among the first survivors to sue the condo association. Now at 72 years old, he has the clothing on his back.
You want to have a lunch with us?
And the generosity of his community.
I appreciate it.
And strangers.
I'm never going to forget it. I mean, how can you forget this?
And Adrian, you heard him mention that toxic dust he inhaled. He has throat problems already. So he told me he went and saw a doctor about his throat issues. And the doctor said, really what you have to worry about is PTSD.
Rudabeh, what are you hearing from those folks? Are they all trying to sell now, or what's their plan?
You know, it's actually a mixed bag, Joe. I spoke with people on both sides. You can see that sister tower over my shoulder there. And of course, there's a lot of concern. You can understand why. Built around the same time, same engineers, same contractors, same material. But they say that as far as they know, the building has been really good about keeping up with the maintenance, because that's really what it's starting to boil down to. How has the board of the association been keeping up with the maintenance, been keeping up with repairs? One person I talked to said that they have had a couple of assessments in recent years, that they don't see that they haven't had the same issues with the pool decks or with any of the columns or concrete. Here's what they had to say. I talked to two different people. One wants to stay, one doesn't want to go anywhere near it.
I don't know what's going further underneath the insides of the guts, since it's the same engineer, the same builder, the same products.
There's no reason I would want to leave. But of course, if there's a thorough examination made and they find some structural defect and one of the columns is cracked and ready to fall, then obviously we would change our mind.
So they say that there have been inspectors in the building the past couple of days from the local, state, and federal levels, that the police and fire department have been there. So that last person we heard from, he feels very confident that everything is fine. The board is interviewing and talking to engineers, and they will have a final assessment from an engineer they hire. So he says that they haven't been very communicative with him, with the owners of the condos and the people living there, but he says he understands why. They want a definitive answer. They want that official report, but he says until he sees anything to the contrary, he feels totally safe being there. On a separate note, he does have friends and neighbors in that sister building, and we just are receiving bad news every day. So that is a really tragic part of it. But despite that, he says he still wants to stay put. Joe?
I'm sure a lot of owners there are asking a lot of questions as a result of this. Rudabeh Shibazi, thanks so much.
Rob, this rain behind me gives you an indication of just one of the many countless obstacles that first responders are contending with. You just heard the forecast, Hurricane Elsa picking up speed in the Caribbean. That poses many challenges because South Florida is in the cone. This, of course, all taking a huge toll on first responders. One of those dead, a 7-year-old girl, the daughter of a City of Miami firefighter. Devastating news for them. And we have breaking developments just within about the last hour. There is another condo building, a separate condo building about 35 minutes north of here that is under a mandatory evacuation order. That's part of that audit that Mayor Daniela Levine Cava of Miami-Dade County ordered for all of these old buildings to make sure they are in compliance with that 40-year recertification effort. We caught up with some of the people having to leave their homes with no notice.
They said, "You gotta leave. What can we do?"
Residents in a North Miami Beach condo packing their belongings and headed out after a mandatory evacuation order, part of the audit ordered by the Miami-Dade County mayor to assure compliance with the 40-year recertification process. As the desperate search continues in Surfside, a devastating blow to first responders.
The City of Miami Fire Department has lost a 7-year-old daughter of one of our own firefighters. She was recovered last night by members of our Urban Search and Rescue Team and Florida Task Force 2.
Even for tireless first responders, this news almost too much to take. Earlier this week, North Bay Village Police Chief Carlos Noriega's mother confirmed dead, and now the 7-year-old daughter of a Miami firefighter.
Every victim we remove, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to remove any survivors yet, but it's very difficult. And last night was even more, when we're removing a fellow firefighter's daughter.
The search, which was halted for about 14 hours yesterday because of safety concerns, now in its 9th day, as hope diminishes for some families of loved ones.
Our nights are very, very long, and our mornings are very, very difficult.
Elon Nybriff was born on the day Americans forever associate with the crumbling of a tower. Now he, too, is missing beneath the rubble. The University of Chicago molecular engineering student was in Florida for the funeral of a friend who died of COVID.
When you have a volcano eruption, you have, it's nature. And this is a human failure. So we are really very upset about that could have been prevented.
The National Weather Service now on the ground as South Florida prepares for a hurricane, further hampering rescue efforts. And engineers work with officials to devise a plan to demolish what's left of Champlain South.
Tropical storm force winds could begin as early as Sunday.
And just today, the Miami-Dade County mayor issuing an emergency order to tear down the rest of what's standing on that Champlain Tower South. I asked if that was going to be efforted before the storm comes in, before this hurricane hits. She said that there's no way that's possible. It's going to take weeks to demolish that. And also, we are hearing that there is a COVID outbreak among the firefighters. About 6 of them have come down with COVID, those who are working on the rubble. Meantime, strike crews are coming in from around the country. There is a Royal Caribbean cruise ship here docking to house them as they prepare an emergency response, not only for the Surfside collapse, but also for Hurricane Elsa. Rob?
My name is in some of these codes because I was involved in writing them.
John Pistorino is an engineering consultant and the reason for the 40-year recertification requirement in Miami-Dade and Broward counties, born of another building collapse in 1974.
It was about 40 years old, and there was a number of buildings in Dade County, Miami, that were 40 years old, and that seemed to be the appropriate stage. I mean, we had a lot of pushback. Oh, let's wait till 50 years, let's wait till 60. If you go to less than that, it's going to be a lot of money for a lot of people.
The Champlain South Tower was also due for its 40-year recertification when it fell. Pistorino predicts the code will now be implemented all over the state. It requires condo boards to hire engineers to certify that a particular building is safe 40 years after it was built and every 10 years thereafter.
They didn't give us no instruction, just pick up whatever you can and leave.
If repairs are still not made, the city can shut the building down and evacuate it, which is what happened to Annabelle Solomon and her family last night in North Miami Beach.
We're young, we can move on, but there's a lot of older people living in the building and people with disability that are just sitting there.
8 miles south, the search continues ahead of Tropical Storm Elsa. The governor and Miami-Dade County mayor now saying the remainder of the standing Champlain Tower South building will be brought down with explosives by Monday before the storm hits. The state picking up the tab.
This will protect our search and rescue teams because we don't know when it could fall over. And of course, with these gusts potentially, that would create a really severe hazard.
The death toll now stands at 24, with 121 people still missing. The exact timeline for the demolition of what's remaining of the standing building is unclear, but we do know it will happen this weekend ahead of Tropical Storm Elsa. And I want to bring in Bettina Obias right now. She is the cousin of Maria and Claudio. They were a couple who have been found, and we're so sorry for your loss, and we appreciate you joining us. Tell us about who Maria and Claudio were.
I call her Tita Coy, which means Aunt Marie Coy. She's actually my second mom. It's just so hard to put into words how much a phenomenal woman she was. She was retiree from the International Monetary Fund as a senior budget officer, and he was also a retiree as a legal counsel at the Intelsat, both in Washington, D.C.
And he was also the nephew of the former president of Chile, I understand.
That's correct, yes. He is the nephew of former president of Chile, Michelle Bachelet.
We're just so sorry for your loss, and it's so unspeakable. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the limbo that you and these other families have been going through, but I understand they were found together in bed.
Yes. I really had, for some reason, I had known in my heart that they did not suffer. They were together, and they were in bed. So I think what happened was that they were already fast asleep when all this thing happened. Like some of the people also were found together in bed, fast asleep. So my only hope is that they died instantaneously without any pain or suffering.
Rudabeh, you were at that press conference. What else did we learn?
Yeah, it just wrapped up about a minute ago, Aaron. The mayor of Surfside was also there, and he talked about this impending storm, Tropical Storm Elsa, and he said this might have actually been a blessing in disguise because it forced them to make the decision to bring this building down. This way they can control where the debris falls, they can control how it happens and when it happens, which you mentioned the time frame there. And then when it comes down, search and rescue crews can get right back out there and continue the search. And this will actually open up about a third of the area that they haven't been able to get to before. But still, people here in Surfside, they're uniting around this tragedy. They're continuing to get bad news. 121 people still missing.
It's shocking. Like, you still feel like hope. You know, I was like praying. I went to the church and I prayed for her, for her family, for the other people.
Search teams recovered the body of Hermina Kraljevic's friend, Graciela Catarasi. Her 7-year-old daughter found days earlier, and her sister visiting from Argentina and her parents still missing. No one has been rescued alive since the first hours after the collapse.
I was hoping they would find them, but in the same time, it was not like really realistic.
The search suspended yesterday so demolition specialists could start carefully drilling holes to insert explosives into the precarious part of the building still standing. Survivors and family members given the option to watch it come down.
I'm not watching it. I didn't go down there when they had the bus and they took all the survivors that wanted to go to look at the building. I didn't find that helpful or therapeutic in any way. I just want to get on with my life.
Florida Task Force 8 coming off the debris pile, hanging a T-shirt in tribute to those they couldn't save.
Through this grief and through this loss, the rain, the smoke, and all of the other obstacles that have been thrown our way, a clear picture emerges of what it means to be American. The story of our nation is a story of everyday men and women who summon great strength and resolve to face incredible challenges.
And in Surfside, on a 4th of July like no other, a grief-stricken community still hoping.
Everything goes back to love. And I think this is a time that as a community and as a country, we should take these times and come together and love each other.
No fireworks in Miami-Dade or Broward tonight out of respect for the victims. There are grief counselors on hand, and you hear this community coming together. Again, this is one of the last views we'll see of this building. It will come down tonight, Aaron. Marnie, that's right. We are starting to feel the outer bands of Tropical Storm Elsa. There are tornado watches in effect here, thunderstorms, scattered showers. And you were here. You know that the first responders just want to be on that pile. They want to be doing their 24/7 search no matter what. They are facing inclement weather. The one time they stopped is because of lightning. That is just way too dangerous for them. So that has put a pause on that search effort. However, after this building came down, that was really the looming threat. So after that came down, this is the first time that they've been able to search 100% of the grid, the entire area.
Left of Champlain Tower South and everything in it, people's homes, belongings, and memories. Now a pile of rubble and dust in the air, imploded around 10:30 last night.
I know, I don't have water, I feel so bad.
20 minutes later, crews were back on the pile, searching for any sign of life and recovering more bodies. The mayor of Surfside calling impending Tropical Storm Elsa a blessing in disguise, hastening the decision to bring the rest of the tower down, allowing engineers to control when and how the building came down and where it fell. Rescuers can now access a large area for the first time and bring in heavy equipment, speeding up the effort.
That happened to be where a lot of the master bedrooms are, that they have made identifications from there. It had been inaccessible, and then because there were likely a lot of people who were sleeping at that time, unfortunately, in that part of it.
As more bodies are recovered, a prominent Surfside rabbi trying to find a way to console grieving families, unable to give their mothers, fathers, children, and siblings a proper burial.
There's nothing that you can say to them that makes sense, because there is no sense to this. Period. End of story.
And as rescuers search for a miracle in the voids and the debris, a void in the skyline and in the heart of a grieving community.
It's a constant reminder of the lives that were lost, the property that was lost. People's whole lives are gone. They're whole gone, and there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee of anything.
It was just unbelievably emotional to watch the building come down last night. People came out into the street. They were crying. However, it did come down perfectly. It came down exactly as planned, so it did not disrupt the existing debris pile. And again, this will help search and rescue crews go over that entire pile. And Marnie, there are now 4.8 million pounds of concrete that have been removed from that debris.